You're tuned in to Super Talk 1270 and Free for Friday. Compelling local talk at 11 o'clock. Free for All Friday features groups and organizations that are plugged into progress here in Central North Dakota. Our rotating panel includes members of the Bismarck Downtowners, the Mandan Progress Organization, the Bismarck Mandan Chamber of Commerce, and representatives from Pride of Dakota. You're invited to call in and join the discussion. It's Free for All Friday on Super Talk 1270.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Free for All Friday program. This is the Pride of Dakota edition. I'm Scott Wild, and with me is producer man extraordinaire Jim Walsh. Jim, how are you?
Not too shabby.
Good. You've had quite a day on the board. You've been hosting the morning show. Now you're helping us with our show.
Well, yeah, I did the mornings on our sibling station down the hall, 98.7.
Right on. So
home of the classic hits.
We always appreciate that you stick around to help us sound good on the on the air. So Kelly is not with us today. She is in Fargo. She's at another one of those record-breaking showcases. 'Tis this season, so we said we would take care of things.
Yeah, you guys have a big wingding in Fargo today, don't you?
Absolutely. It's all weekend long. It started last night, and actually it starts today. She's setting up for that today. It'll go today, Saturday, and Sunday.
Right.
In the Fargo and Bismarck, that's when they add the Friday shows. So we'll visit a little bit about that. Hey, if you want to listen to this show online or find replays of the podcast, you can visit our website at www.supertalk1270.com. Also on facebook.com/supertalk1270. Today we're going to have Pride of Dakota member Jim Bailey. He is the owner of High Performance Ceramics. He'll be with us on the phone in just a little bit. Before we talk to Jim, though, lots going on in the Pride of Dakota. And, of course, this is holiday showcase season. We kicked it off on November 8th through the 9th in Grand Forks. More than 500 attendees from last year. Up more than 500 attendees, not 500 attendees. They are setting records every single year that they have this, Jim. It's amazing the amount of people coming out and supporting. Last week in Minot, great show again. Record-breaking numbers of vendors. So Minot is really becoming kind of one of the superstars and the up-and-coming superstars of the Pride of Dakota holiday season. It's pretty impressive what they're doing up there. This weekend, though, is the Fargo Civic Center Auditorium. Nearly 150 North Dakota companies gathering. Today, the doors will be open from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tomorrow, they're going to be open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then on Sunday, they open up from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. Admission is just $2. I mean, you can't beat it. Get all of your holiday shopping done in one venue. If you bring a reusable cloth shopping bag, you save $1. Then, active and retired military members and families will receive $1 off with a military ID. And shoppers will get a showcase passport that they can enter in for chances to win $250 in Pride of Dakota bucks to spend at the showcase. So if you're a member of the military, you bring a cloth bag, guess what? You get in for free. So it's, $1. Jim, do you take part in Black Friday at all?
Once in a while. Depends on what kind of mood I'm in on any given year.
Yeah, we're the same way. We go more just for the people watching. We usually go out about midnight. I
kind of enjoy the atmosphere. I kind of like getting out and just being part of the whole busyness of it all.
Right. When else can I buy my kid a Starbucks at like 3 in the morning?
That's right.
So,
yeah.
No, we go for the fun. But if you go to one of these showcases, in fact, the Bismarck showcase is coming up on December 5th through the 7th here in Bismarck.
Yeah.
More than 200 North Dakota companies. I mean, literally, you can take care of all your shopping in one felt swoop. Show up on a Saturday, $2 to get in.
One-stop shopping.
One-stop shopping, and they have everything from wine to crafts to food to you name it. Clothing. Some of North Dakota's finest companies are gathered under there. So, again, they're going to have the passport program there. You can win $250 in Pride of Dakota bucks. You can save $1 with the reusable.
Yeah, how does that work with the bucks?
So the Pride of Dakota bucks, they basically give you a voucher that you can then use at the booths, and they'll be honored by any of the. So you're basically getting $250 off of your shopping and free Pride of Dakota merchandise.
I like that.
It's fantastic. So they're going to have a new website launching next week, within the next few weeks. So be sure to check that out. But if you can't make it to the showcases, you can always check out prideofdakota.com to find out the companies and Pride of Dakota retailers that carry products near you. And it's always a great thing when you can support local businesses, especially on Black Friday through the holidays. This is a great way to stimulate our economy, to support local entrepreneurs, help them live the dream. So you can also find out membership information and opportunities on the website at prideofdakota.com. And, for $50, Jim, if you are an entrepreneur, you have a small business, I can't think of a better investment of $50 because you get opportunities like these showcases to get yourself in front of literally tens and tens of thousands of people over a couple of weekends. And they are really in high buying gear. And in fact, Jim, the gentleman we're going to be visiting with on the phone, uses showcases very, very well. We'll talk to him a little bit about that. So with that, we're going to talk to High Performance Ceramics. I believe we have Jim Bailey on the phone. Jim, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello, Scott.
How you doing?
Jim.
Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jim, you are up in Minot, North Dakota, correct?
Yes, that's where I'm out of.
And did you participate in the Pride of Dakota show, obviously in Minot, but do you participate in any of the other shows?
Yeah, I actually do all. I do the harvest showcases in Williston and Dickinson, and then I do the all of them except for Fargo this weekend. This time of year, I usually have quite a few loose ends to tie up, and it doesn't work out. I've got several dinnerware sets and other things I have to do.
Sure.
And so it just doesn't. It's just you got to have a weekend to kind of tie up all the loose ends.
Well, you got to take a breather every once in a while too. I mean, these showcases are great for your business. I mean, they really put you in front of a lot of people, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and not only just consumers, people who are going to buy it, but also, like say in Bismarck, people that own stores will come through occasionally, and sometimes you get clients like that.
Sure,
also.
You get retailers coming in.
Sure.
Jim,
Sure.
let's introduce your company, High Performance Ceramics, and so tell the audience when did you start and what does your business do?
Well, I started the actual High Performance was started about 2.5-3 years ago.
Sure.
Officially. But as a studio potter, which is what I am, making cups and mugs and all kinds of things like that, I started 25 years ago. And the like I say, the face of the company and the actual selling of more of a full-time basis, I guess, is recent. But the history and the school of hard knocks, so to speak, started quite a bit ago, quite a long time ago.
Well, wouldn't you? That's kind of the story of a lot of entrepreneurs, though, Jim, is that they have something they've been doing maybe their whole life or for 20, 30 years, and finally someone just says, you should sell these. These are
sure.
Really good.
Yeah. Well, and I from the time I started, I took a ceramics class in college, and I hated it. I hated it.
The irony.
And yeah, and I wanted to be something else. I wanted to do something else, metals or a painter or something else.
Sure.
And it was an art degree, and I took it just to get it over with. But I had a good instructor, and he told me, why don't you take it during the summer? It's like, man, I can't wait to get out of here. He's like, you should take it in the summer. You can just do whatever you want. You can make whatever you want. You can make some of these bigger pieces, whatever you want to do. I'll leave you alone. Just make enough work, basically, is what he told me. And it was perfect for me.
Sure.
And,
what an ironic start. And Jim, we're going to step out and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to learn more about High Performance Ceramics and find out what it is you do and a little bit about how you got your company started. We'll be right back.
All right.
Right now, 23.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
Hey, welcome back to the Free For All Friday program. This is the Pride of Dakota edition. Scott Wild along with Jim Walsh, and on the phone we've got Jim Bailey of High Performance Ceramics. Jim, welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. Good to be here.
Yeah, so Jim, before the break, we were talking a little bit about your company, what you do. You are a potter by trade, and it's kind of ironic that it started this. You started the company a couple of years ago, but really this passion for pottery started with a torturous college class that you didn't like. I just think that's
and
fantastic.
like I said, it was, and we were kind of talking about selling and how it got started, and
sure.
And what had happened then is. I was able to make these pots that were kind of not necessarily in the curriculum. They were taller and they were bigger, and so I was able to kind of play with that and work with that aspect of it. And one of the reasons I didn't like it so much is that the wheel is almost like a musical instrument.
Yep.
Practice. You're not going to walk into the guitar store and pick up a guitar and be Jimi Hendrix the first day, and if you are, you're something special, And so it just takes lots of practice at the time, and of course when you're starting out, you don't have any of the practice, and you might have the time, but you don't. You need to build up that kind of repertoire with the machine. So in the first few pieces, some of the first few pieces actually turned out pretty nice, and I actually wound up selling them right away, which I could always get something to work the first time, and then, I'll be gosh darned if I could get it to work again.
Sure, like a happy accident, right?
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
So, how many work for your company, Jim?
Just me.
It's just
just
okay.
me. There is room for some growth, but again, being that it's such a skilled labor position, you almost need to either find somebody who wants to start at the bottom and really wants to stick with it, or somebody who's already kind of has some experience. And so it's kind of as our state is growing now, there's becoming people who have learned it in other areas and have come in and the ability to hire them is there. But I started for a while. I was an apprentice, and you really start in at the ground floor.
I was just going to ask, who have been your mentors or teachers in learning this trade?
Well, the original college professor that I had, his name was Tom Willis, and he's moved out of the area now. But he was probably one of the the original sparks. He was a very creative guy. He one of those kind of guys that was unfortunately was pretty well burned out by the time I got to him. But once he sensed that spark, like 90% of the class, it's like, okay, if you don't want to put anything into it, you're not going to get anything out of it, and I'm going to the golf course. That's kind of the way he was.
Well, maybe in your profession, people don't get burned out; they get fired, and they become finished products, right?
Well, and the funny thing is with me I kind of figured him out, and I would be down there. I would be down there at all hours of the day and night working on stuff, and things would fall apart and collapse, and it's like, well, he's nowhere to be seen, so I'm going to wait here at 2:45 before he gets here for class, and I'm going to collar him, and I would literally do that and wait for him, and he'd show up, and I'd just like spring on him and say, okay, come here, and I'd drag him over there, and
Sure.
I'd lift up the plastic and say, this is what I did. This is how long I put into it, and this is what happened, and there'd be this mess laying on the table. And he'd sit me down, and he'd tell me things that even 10 years later would just kind of fall out of my brain and say, oh, that's what he meant by that, And
Sure.
so that was the original kind of the original thing that got me going. And then I moved on and I apprenticed for another potter and learned a whole bunch of got a whole other aspect for that. That's a funny story in itself. We were at Minot State, and we were in the hallway, myself and this other professor, and another professor, the painting professor, Walter Peel. He comes walking up and he's like, "Hey,
fantastic artist."
Yeah, did you ever get a hold of this other potter? Did you ever get a hold of her and talk with her about working for her? Because he had actually told me about this opportunity, and I got to thinking about it. I said, before I even said anything, Tom Willis, he looks over and he goes, "He's not good enough," and and that made me, the whole time for 2.5 weeks, I'd been saying, I'm really not good enough to do this. And that actually made me mad enough to go out there and try it.
I think that's what exactly, and I think that is one of the characteristic traits of an entrepreneur that you exhibit here, is that really you have to go find those people and you have to do whatever it takes to get that knowledge from them. And sometimes it's staying after or just taking them out to lunch or cornering them and having them get it, and also having more than one mentor as well too. I think that's really important. So you have a very interesting studio situation in Minot, and I understand it started with a Ford Torino or something like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, what had happened is actually back to Willis too. He had, after he'd retired from teaching, he had set up a studio downtown, and he'd bought all the equipment and had a really nice studio going. And I'd moved back. I was an artist in residence in Montana, and I had moved back. And I was doing some teaching for Minot State, kind of his old parts of his old position. It wasn't a full-time job, but it was a good way to keep going in the field. And there wasn't a lot of studio space at the school for me to use. It was kind of pretty well taken up, and
Sure.
I was trying really hard to get in with Tom, and he had another guy working with him, and I was trying to get in there. No, we don't have room. And so I had a friend who owned some property in town. And he let me into. It was an old hotel, the washing, the center for where they used to do all the laundry.
Okay.
He let me in there, and that was just enough to get my foot in the door. And then Tom decided he wanted to sell. And I had a 74 Torino that it was a pretty nice car, and, you know, it was kind of before, you know, everything, you know, the cars were still, you know, they're still, some of them are still worth quite a bit, but this one was, you know, it's kind of the right time. And I wound up selling it because I didn't have a garage, and I hated to see it sitting outside. And I took that money, and I turned it around, and I wound up buying Tom out. And here I am. I mean, it was a lot of expensive equipment. He was, in a way, was happy to see it, you know, continue to be used and not just parted out or whatever. And so it was kind of one of those deals to where kind of preserving the legacy of his studio also, I guess.
And that also had something to do with the why you named the company High Performance.
Yeah, it really did. I'd been searching for a good name. I'd kind of come and gone with a few names, and I'd been searching for a good name. And what I'd been doing up until that point was a lot of taking a vase and using chrome decorative elements from cars, just, you know, like emblems and sometimes tail lights and sometimes exhaust pieces and things like that, and accentuating them in the pots. And I know that it doesn't sound that intriguing. It might sound intriguing, but it kind of sounds kind of tacky when you tell people about it and you see the look on their face, and then you show them one and they're like, oh wow, yeah, that really does work.
Sure.
So, and that was kind of my thing, and it's also my personality was, you know, I mean, the kid that was really into cars and motorcycles and things like that, but wound up being a potter, you know. So you go hang around with your buddies, you know, and at the drag strip or something, and people are like, oh, well, what do you do? You know, well, I'm a potter. Oh, well, you know, let's talk about the Twins or anything other than, you know, than that. You know, so it's kind of a weird dichotomy of two opposite things, and that's where performance came in. And the work is high fired, and it's also dishwasher, microwave, and oven safe and lead free, and so it performs very well also. So it kind of boom. It was one of those bingo moments where that's a perfect name for this.
Well, we're going to get to the products in just a moment, but there is one more interesting fact, if you will, or story behind your studio. And maybe if the guys around the track don't want to talk about pottery, maybe this element of the story or where it was located or what it used to be before would kind of add a little bit more testosterone to the mix. Yeah,
it was kind of funny. What had happened is where Tom had set up his studio, the owners of that building had decided, as things just continue to boom in this part of the country, they decided that they really wanted to use that space for their own business. And at that point, Tom was long gone, and I was making a go of it. And I had actually quit my job. It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier about, you know, having the opportunity and you know, and taking people out to lunch to get information and stuff. Sometimes as an entrepreneur, you just need that grit to say, I'm going to do this. And that's what had happened. I had actually quit my job. I didn't have any source of income. And I said, I've got this equipment now. It's taken me this long to get this equipment. I'm going full bore after this.
You're all in.
And yeah, that's it. I'm all in. And then 2 months later, it's like, oh, hey, by the way, you know, we don't want you here anymore. You know, basically, it's like, okay, well, you know, I guess I'm done. That was quick. Because, I mean, the kiln is 2,200 pounds.
Yep.
I usually have about 3 tons of clay on me, you know, not to mention the other electric kilns. I have about 7 kilns all told now, and moving all this stuff. And I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way I can do this. And so I call my buddy, and it sounds like we're coming up on a break here.
Yeah, you know, we're going to step out, take a quick break, and we'll finish this story about the interesting fact of where your studio is located, your pottery studio. When we come back, we're visiting with Jim Bailey. He's the owner of High Performance Ceramics. He's a potter by trade. You're listening to the Free for All Friday program. This is the Pride of Dakota edition. We'll be right back.
Right now, 23.
When the weather turns bad, turn to us. Bismarck Mandan's Emergency Weather Information Station, Super Talk 1270.
And welcome back to the Free for All Friday program. This is the Pride of Dakota edition. I'm Scott Wild along with Jim Walsh. On the phone, we've got Jim Bailey from High Performance Ceramics. Jim, welcome back.
Thanks, Scott.
So, Jim, this is one of those stories I just love. This is what I love about the show. We get to talk to entrepreneurs all the time who really, there's kind of a common theme. You know what? People, they learn a trade. In your case, it was not the obvious choice right away. You took a college class that you hated and wished you could have gotten out of, and it ended up becoming your career in pottery. and you eventually want to get out of your job. You find a studio, you buy someone out, and now you're going all in. You're putting all your chips in. You want to do the business full time. And we were talking just before the break about your studio, and there's something really interesting about what this studio used to be. So your friend calls you up, right, and says, "Hey, I got a studio for you. Let's finish the conversation."
Yeah, he had, I did, like I said, it was kind of like a real dramatic make or break moment for me. And I had known, this is the guy I had rented the old laundromat from.
Sure.
And I'd known he had that, and so I thought, well, give it a shot. So I called him up, and I said, he also had several other pieces of property. I called him up, and I told him what had happened. Look, I'm done. If I need a place, and he said, well, he owned a bar. Actually, right across the alley from my old studio, he owned a bar. And so the benefits were going to be huge. And it's like, meet me at the bar. I don't want to meet you at the bar. I don't need a drink. I don't want to get drunk. I got enough problems right now.
Right.
No, meet me at the bar. So I meet him at the bar, and he takes me up. This is a real, especially in Minot, this is a real well-known establishment. Originally, it was an Eagles club.
Sure.
For first 20 years, and then it was a real well-known. Almost anybody who cycled through Minot, including my dad, when he cycled through Minot and when he was younger, and actually selling motorcycles, Can-Am motorcycles. When he was selling that back in the 70s, he knew of this bar. And so we go to the bar, and he takes me up to this third floor, which nobody really knows is there. I mean, few people do. When you step outside the building and look, there's 3 sets of windows, but when you're inside the building itself, you don't really make a connection. It's kind of
Sure.
hidden entrances and all of this. And it turns out that this was the Eagles. Back in the day, this was the Eagles' kind of private gambling center, if you know what I mean. And there still is the guts to the old buzzer system to the front door.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I want to get in the game, hit the buzzer, say the password.
In the day, yeah. And it was, at one time, it was really ornate and really, really nice. And, the years, nobody had really been up there much.
Sure.
And so it had been neglected. And it turned out to be perfect for, the only bad thing, Scott, is hauling 80-pound boxes of pottery up 3 flights of stairs.
And 7 kilns, right?
Yeah, well, the 2 of them wound up kind of back in a shed out in the alley, the 2 heavy ones, and the other ones, really with 2 guys, we managed to get them up there, so they weren't so bad.
So this is a studio. I mean, you've got everything set up. You've got this space. It's kind of in a hidden, former illegal gambling little center in the Eagles Club. But this really isn't a studio that's really meant for foot traffic, correct?
No, it's the way it's set up is it's more of a working studio.
Sure.
I do have quite a few, several businesses that handle the work, one here in Minot, and so a lot of times I'll just direct people to the businesses that handle it. On occasion, people do come up, but it's not necessarily a gallery space or a like something that's open all the time for people to come in and browse.
Sure.
And the main reason for that is me being the only employee is once I get into a rhythm of making stuff, even a 5-minute phone conversation sets me back a half hour.
Sure. Do you make them when people come up and see your studio? Do you make them ring the buzzer?
No, it doesn't. It's not. It's just the guts of it.
Come on.
But I wish I had it because
I think you should put it back in. Like I'd have to ring the buzzer and say, "I'm here for some coffee mugs."
Exactly.
Come with me. Right. So, Jim, let's talk about what you do. Let's talk about the products. I mean, we're talking about pottery. We're talking about, tons and tons of clay and potter wheels and kilns. But what are the kinds of products that you actually make at High Performance Ceramics?
Mainly kitchen accessories, food item related items, bowls, plates, coffee cups.
Sure.
Do a lot of baking dishes, utensils like that, utensil holders, crocks, things like that. A full line, about a 30-piece line, really, of the kitchen and eating utensils.
So considered pretty high functional pottery.
Yeah. The other end of it is the decorative end, where vases, miniature vases, little knick-knack kind of things, and vases that really appeal to a kind of a different market to some extent.
Sure. I mean, the decorative pieces that you might put on a mantle or a wall, or you've had some people commission some decorative pieces with you as well, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of a running thing. Part of the thing that keeps you from really going crazy. I always like to say this when people come into my booth. They look at the cups and they look at the plates and they look at all of the things that are more mechanical, that you'll sit down and you'll make 30 or 40 of them at a time.
Sure.
And then there's always usually one or two one-of-a-kind vases that are, $300 to $500 in that range. And you get a lot of, wow, and wow, those are really nice.
Right.
And I always tell them, I say, well, when you look at the plates and the cups and the mugs, that is the classwork. That's doing the day-to-day classwork that's kind of routine. But when you get to the vases, that's your recess. That's when you get to play.
That's where you get to go out and play. Right on. Well, even with the cups and mugs and plates, I mean, one of the things when you're having it made, I mean, because one of the questions I want to ask you is the difference between, someone just going out and buying a box of dishes or buying, a set of pieces from you. Wouldn't one of the differences be that each piece really is kind of unique? I mean, there are no two that are identical.
Yeah, I like to say that they have a certain amount of, for lack of a better word, a handmade piece has a certain amount of soul to it.
Sure.
I have many, many, many people that come in and buy a mug or two just because they like the color and they like the way it looks, they like the way it feels in their hand, and they'll take it home. And the next year I come back around and they're in my booth again, and they say, you know what, I bought a mug from you last year. It's my favorite mug. I use it every day. I have a whole cupboard full of mugs, but this is the one that I really like. And everything is hand done. It's hand thrown on the wheel. The handles are hand pulled, what we call pulling the handles. They're all handmade, and they just have a certain feel to them and a certain essence about them that you don't get from mass-produced stuff.
Sure. And because of the firing process and the materials in the clay, I mean, they all come out with their own little personality, don't they?
Yeah, you line up 10 of them and no two of them look identical, and that's good and bad to some extent. But I always like to say that, it's like a family. It's like if you have ever had several brothers and sisters, or even cousins or whatever. The several brothers and sisters, 4 or 5 brothers and sisters, might be from the same mom and dad, but they're all different.
Sure.
And that's the way
can be a good thing too.
Yeah, it can. I mean, it's not. If you look in my cupboard, I get the rejects, the ones that I can't sell, and they're no two colors are the same.
I'm sure my brother every day is thankful that he doesn't look like me. So.
Yeah, so that's not a bad thing sometimes.
I loved what you said. We were visiting on the phone yesterday, and you talk about how they reward you. These pieces reward you for when you pick them out. I love the soul of the handmade and the reward that they give you. Maybe they keep your coffee a little bit hotter.
And any good piece of art, I learned this a long time ago, any good piece of art should reward you. Back to the early days when I first started making some pieces that were fairly successful, and the ones that I eventually sold, I would make them and I would take them home and I would put them somewhere to where I could see them. And that's when I learned, you'd have a tough day, you'd go home, you'd look at this thing and it would reward you. It would give you something back. It almost, I used to say it's like a good CD. You go and you spend, $20 on a CD. I don't know if you even have to do that anymore, but back in the 90s, it seemed like it was $18 to $24 for a CD. But if it was a good CD or a good piece of music, it would just give you something back. And you'd say, oh, that was worth it. Or a good book.
Well, we were also talking yesterday about some of the commissioned pieces that you have done. I think you've done a couple with Cattle Brands, and talk a little bit about the church also that commissioned a couple hundred pieces from you.
Opportunity is everything in my business.
Yep.
And being the Pride of Dakota, the showcases are perfect opportunity, and it puts me out into the public, and I'll have people come in, and they'll say, well, I really like your mugs, I like your colors, but can you put our brand for our cattle? Can you put that somehow, work that into our mug? And sure, let me do a few ideas, send you some images, and get back to you. And I'd done the Watford City Centennial is how this all got started, and met some of the great folks up there. And you want to talk about diversity? Holy cow! I mean, Scott, I talked to people from Alabama, lots of Sooners from Oklahoma, lots of people from Texas, Californians, Ohio, Pennsylvania, you name it. I mean, during this one show, I just talked to all these different people, and because of that show, a couple of weeks down the road or a month down the road, I got a phone call from a local church that wanted to do commemorative bowls for their 100th anniversary. And I, again, told them, hey, I'll get you some images and we'll go from there. And so here we are. We're working together, and we're doing 300 bowls for their 100th anniversary.
That is fantastic. And really quickly, we're going to take a step out and take a break. But before we do that, if someone is interested in commissioning a piece, Jim, how would they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me at HI Performance Ceramics at hotmail.com.
Okay.
Or 701-240-2249.
Wonderful. We're visiting with Jim Bailey. He is the owner of High Performance Ceramics. You're listening to the Free for All Friday program. This is the Pride of Dakota edition. When we come back, we're going to talk about how an artist keeps it fresh and keeps it new. We'll be right back.
Right now, 28.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
And welcome back to the Free for All Friday program. This is the Pride of Dakota edition. We're moving into our last segment. Scott Wild along with Jim Walsh, producer man, and on the phone, Jim Bailey. He is the owner of High Performance Ceramics. Jim, welcome back.
All right, Scott. Good to be here.
We're glad you're here. And you know what? You're just one of those stories that I think just really proves that if you do what you're passionate about, that you can really make a living at it. And, you know, we just talked a little bit about the personality and the individual personality of each of the pieces that you do produce. Let's start with what kind of feedback have you received on these products? And has it caused you to change anything in how maybe some styles or different lines?
Well, yes. Really what happens with that is people will come in and sometimes they'll suggest, do you have this or do you have that or, do you have any of these pieces? And sometimes, usually towards the beginning of the year, like January, February, when you're kind of rebuilding your stock, that's when I have to kind of innovate some pieces. You can't. Usually, it takes about 20 or 30 pieces before you really get it right and can market it. Maybe not quite 30, but it takes quite a few to get all the bugs out of it. And so, if you're getting into, like, say, November or December, when Christmas rush, and somebody comes in and wants a certain piece, you can't really get it to them in a timely fashion. So that's where that comes into play. A lot of times I'll add pieces. Somebody will say, well, I want this, but I want it a little smaller, or I want this, and sometimes I can accommodate them in that way. But by and large, the reception to the pieces has just been fantastic, and people really appreciate what I'm doing, which makes me feel good because it is my stuff. There are influences there, and there are things that I've picked up over the years in studying the different cultures and all of that. There are a lot of influences, and there are a lot of things that I've taken and borrowed and begged and maybe stolen, from other people. But as it turns out, there's people that are doing the same with me and kind of taking some of my ideas too, and so I guess it just means I'm in the right place and doing the right thing. Well,
I think that's with art. No two people are ever going to produce the same exact piece anyways. They're always going to put a little bit of their personality and spin on it, or technique, or whatever that may be. I love, we were talking yesterday, and I asked you how long it took to make a piece, and your answer was, it takes me 25 years to make a coffee cup, which I just think is fantastic, because it's just a culmination, right, of all the experience that you put into it.
Yeah, and that's another question you get. How long does it take you to make a mug? And it took me 25 years. It's taken all of that amount of time to be able to really to get what I want to do. And I'm still learning. I like to think that I'm a little bit more than a teenager, maybe an early adult in this craft. Not necessarily gone through the adolescent stage, and I've gone through the teenage years, and I'm probably in my late 20s, early 30s as far as this goes into this craft. So I have a way to go. I have still things to learn and still things to do, and that's the challenge, and that's kind of the fun of it is learning. Moving the kiln was a big experience because it's taken me a year to get it right. Those big monsters, it's a gas kiln, and you're a lot of what you're using is your ears and your eyes when you're firing it.
Okay.
And, you can mess up 130 pieces in no time at all.
Now, explain what you mean by you use your ears.
Well, you're listening to the burners and you're listening to how they sound, and you're trying to get, if you get a good firing, you're trying to replicate that. Well, that might have been last week. So, no matter how good you are, you're still that's a week ago. And so you're listening to the burners, and you're judging from the flame that's coming out of the top and the flame that's coming out of the atmosphere, which is reflecting the atmosphere in the kiln. And it takes a lot of perceptive paying attention to those aspects in order to get it right. And again, what's at stake is sometimes between 100 and 130 pieces that you've sweated over and slaved over for the last 2 to 3 weeks, and they're in the kiln, and if you screw it up, which I have,
Sure.
If you screw it up, you're starting over.
Well, let's talk about the process a little bit itself, maybe even starting with the materials. I mean, how do you decide what kinds of materials do you use? Is it just clay? Do you add anything to the clay?
Yeah, I get mine, it's a commercial clay, and I mix my own glazes by hand. I throw everything, I pull all the handles, I trim everything. There's a lot of process involved in what I do, and so I don't go out and dig natural clays and try to make them conform to what I want. And the reason being, I do have the mixer, and I do have the de-airing pug mill, I have all of that kind of stuff, but I just don't have the time, really. I mean, I need to be able to make a living, I need to be able to keep the doors open, so I buy stuff that's AP safe already, it's already tested, it's already ready to go, it's approved, and it'll do what I need it to do. And so I'll buy like I told you before, like 3 tons at a shot or 4 tons at a shot, and have it shipped up, and just go from there. That'll be my year. And then I take my scraps and I do reconstitute them. So I don't have to do much with the clay, but I do mix all my own glazes from my own recipes, and they're my things I've either found and enhanced, or things that I've found and they work fine for me. And some of them I've had for up to 25 years, and I know they're good. I know they're dishwasher safe and microwave safe and lead free. No lead used in my studio, so that's all a good thing.
That is great. I had a friend of mine who was a potter and gave me a coffee mug, and I want to say it was a $35 coffee mug, but it was one of those things where it accidentally got broken. Mm-hmm. And there was no question. There wasn't even a question of whether it was going to be replaced. We just replaced it, and it was because of the quality. And every time we used it, it got comments, and it was because it had this personality. But I think one of the most fascinating pieces of it that you're alluding to is the kiln itself. Talk about a state that is known for its weather. I think you've probably picked the right business to be in, where your studio is probably fairly toasty warm, right?
Yeah, it's the inside the kiln. It's 2,300 degrees, 2,350 at peak temperature, and so there's been times in the summer where I've gone in and it's been between 120, 135. The thermometer is well past pegged.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's not much fun. But you kind of get used to it. I guess like they say in Phoenix and in Arizona, it's a dry heat, so it's not too bad. But you get in the winter, it's cold outside, and you step inside the kiln room, and you take the jacket comes off and the sweatshirt comes off, and as you're making your adjustments, because it's plenty warm in there.
Sure.
And that's where kind of the magic. That's where they say that's where the magic happens, is in the kiln room.
Well, and like you said, you're creating these 35 pieces and you're putting them in there, and now it's really just kind of up to is everything set? Is the clay? There's a lot of little miracles that have to happen for that to come out correct, right? So there's a lot of superstition also involved with pottery, isn't there?
Well, anytime you're dealing with something that's going to start out as mud and then change to rock, stone basically, and which is it's stoneware. So it starts out as mud, change to rock, go up to 2,300 degrees, come out a certain color that looks absolutely nothing like what you've put it in at. The colors on the glazes when they're dry and unfired, they look nothing like what's going to come out.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of you're just you're not exactly sure what's going on, and it takes that. Then the other thing, Scott, is the fact that you'll put it in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's done by 8 or 9 at night, and then you have to wait another 20 to 15 hours before you can even open the kiln.
Sure. Wow.
So,
yeah, I suppose at 2,300, even if it's a dry heat.
What do you call it? It's not a real instant gratification thing.
Sure. Well, patience is definitely a part of it, and I think that's what makes it beautiful. The fact that there is more. It's not something that's just pumped out on a conveyor belt and in mass production. These are individual pieces of art with some thought taken into consideration. So, Jim, we've got about 2 minutes left, and I just want to make sure that people understand. You offer the full functional kitchenware, the baking ware, the dinners, plates, the mugs, all of that stuff. But you also order or have decorative pieces that even can be commissioned. If people want to get a hold of you, again, let's give them your email address and your phone number. Okay,
my email is HIPerformance, PERFORMANCE, ceramics, CERAMICS, High Performance Ceramics @hotmail.com, and area code 701-240-2249.
And I'm assuming that we're going to be able to see you down here in Bismarck as well during the December showcase?
Yes, certainly. I would be in the Civic Center. If you're looking to the north, I would be in the east. The second row in the east is where I'm going to be this year. And the stuff I'm making, believe it or not, today, Scott, some of the stuff I'm making today is going to be in Bismarck.
Fantastic. We can't wait to see it. If you're going to be at the Pride of Dakota showcases, we highly recommend that you stop by and say hello to Jim Bailey. He is the owner of High Performance Ceramics. He's a potter by trade. Stop by and look at the pieces of art that we were talking about today. Jim, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with us on the program today.
Thank you, Scott.
Once again, High Performance Ceramics at hotmail.com. 701-240-2249 is the number to reach him. We'll be back next month with another show. Once again, you're learning about all the North Dakota, Pride of Dakota entrepreneurs, their stories, why they matter. We appreciate you being with us. You have a great Thanksgiving weekend. We'll see you next month.